good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hi, so my name is Serene, and welcome back to the Serene View. Again, today we are having a constructive argument. And if you have never heard of a constructive argument before, a constructive argument is a movement I'm starting basically to kind of bring back a little bit of the diversity of views into the world. I think there's just too much, me too, in social media. And whenever people get together, they tend to be polarized. So I think every issue has multiple sides. And this is why I'm doing this. So today, I am very pleased to be introducing one of the lords of evil of the gaming industry, the man who's responsible for writing the stories, for making us addicted to games. So Isaac, I mean, Isaac's not just a demon lord. I think he's got 3 kids. You've got 3 kids, right? Yes. So he has prepared the next generation for his invasion. So can I get you to introduce yourself a little bit, Isaac?
Yeah, so my name is Isaac. I am a narrative designer, so I am more in charge of the story than anything else. But I manage a variety of teams. I'll manage the art team, I manage the sound team, I manage the design team, all in an attempt to make sure that the story shines through the entire experience. I also volunteer. I teach through a variety of mentor programs. So, I very much work on raising the next generation of designers for what's coming up next. So I can, take credit for what I'm doing, but also take credit long after I'm gone. And everything, anything that has to do with story, I'm in charge of. I recently finished up a contract at iPlay as it showed up there, and I am a freelancer, which means that I get to work from home, enjoy, my own the same office, no matter what project I'm picking up, and work for projects big and small. And the diversity of that is very enjoyable.
Very nice to have you, Isaac.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Thank you. Yes. And today, what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about computer games are evil. Yes. And we have actually gathered, why is it that there's 3 of us instead of just 2? Because we are all representing different aspects of computer games. So there's obviously Isaac, a computer game veteran, someone who strongly believes that games are good for you, who is part of creating all these games for the world. And then there's me. I've been a lifelong gamer. And then I had a son. Okay, so I've been gaming for something like 25, 30 years, and then I had a son. And suddenly I'm like, a parent instead of a gamer, and I'm swamped with all these, is this good for my son? Should I be exposing him to all these violence, thoughts? And quite obviously, I've had to give up gaming. I'm not allowing him to game. And then there is Tiffany. Now, Tiffany is a non-gamer who has felt the full effects of the detrimental effects of other people gaming, right? So that's why we've invited her on as well. So I think we've had a couple of articles thrown out over the week talking about gaming, about how the game industry uses the same techniques as casinos to get people addicted, talking about how game changes your brain, and obviously talking about how game benefits you today. So if any of you have any ideas or comments, please just drop it in. I'm going to let Isaac start with the opening salvo of today. So Isaac, what would you like to say?
I was prepared more to defend, so I was hoping someone else was going to go first.
Okay.
But I very much.
I'll start. Right.
Okay.
The reason why you should not game, right, is especially for children, as a parent, as we were children, is because your brain develops in response to its environment. Okay, so whatever environment you're put in, is part of humans' ability to adapt and survive, that your brain will start to adapt to the environment. So if you get used to game environment, and let's be frank now, it's a lot more stimulating, it's a lot more engaging than real life has like hope of being. And what will happen is you get a whole bunch of kids that are bored with life, bored at school, bored if nothing is out there stimulating them, engaging them, and just, unable to adapt to what you and I would consider real life.
So, straight out the gate, I'm going to introduce a topic that I developed. So, I run my own company as well as working as a freelancer, and the company's name is called Pollen, Pollen. It stands for Play Optimized for Limitless Learning, Entertainment, and Narrative. And so we've kind of developed this psychological aspect of the word play. We believe that it is a synergy between three aspects: learning, entertainment, and narrative. So I want to talk about 2 points. First of all, getting acclimated to a game itself is there are a large variety of games that maintain similar genres. There's a lot of shooter games out there that definitely input a little bit more violence than other forms of media due to the fact that conflict in all media is prevalent, but combat is especially an easy form of conflict to put in when you're dealing with something that you want to interact with. However, there are a large variety of other games out there, and the first one I want to get into is Minecraft, because Minecraft, while it does have some action-oriented systems, it is very much a creative builder-like tool, something along the lines of Legos, that as an environment is a great place to build in and a great place to get acclimated to. There are also plenty of other games that go through the story. So one of my favorites is called Life is Strange. There is a lot of conflict there, and a very little amount of violence, but none of it is actually put in through the mechanics. The story is all about rewinding time, little bits at a time, to engage in better conversations. Definitely one of my, favorite games out there. Now, the reason why I brought up play and getting involved is because I'm a big fan of changing, or I believe in changing the educational system. And one of the things that I feel the public school system, specifically in America, but I believe that this is the case everywhere, has done is they have taken play and they pulled education out of it. So by pulling education out, you're leaving behind the other two aspects. You're leaving behind narrative and you're leaving behind entertainment. And what this does is you have, the learning side, which is about growing and becoming more capable and about learning. The narrative side is about how people relate to one another. So as a narrative designer, that is my main goal, is how do I have people relate to the characters in the game, or, for whatever I'm writing, mostly games. And then the last part, entertainment, is how do I keep people engaged? Do I use internal motivators, external motivators? There's a lot of stuff that kind of goes in. And one of the things you'll see is that the game design and designs for, a variety of things that come in real life are very similar. The psychology behind the designs of many things that humans interact with is very, very similar. And so you see that a lot of people are developing what's called gamification, which is taking game design aspects and putting it into real life in order to make things more engaging. And there's plenty of reasons that is, bad, but more than anything, there are more reasons where that is good, where you're able to take that same level of engagement that you get in a game and put it in other aspects of life. And we're learning that.
And I was just wondering whether, is it because we are kind of all a bit used to being entertained these days that we need this level of engagement? Because we were just talking about back when we were young, right? Back when I was young, I mean, this television was this huge box and didn't even have stuff on all the time. It had stuff on for 8 hours, something like that. And to be very frank, a lot of the times I found my own entertainment. But is it because we are kind of a bit spoiled right now? We are used to a very stimulating environment, so we need to be entertained for everything.
So yes and no. I absolutely would say that we are spoiled. I'll try and put on Disney Plus for my kids and, put on one of their favorite shows. And then we're getting to an environment where there's a TV channel and you have to put on the TV shows. And they're like, why can I not watch exactly what I want to watch when I want to watch it? So we're definitely spoiled for sure. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Technology has given us a variety of ways to survive against harsher environments over time. And so, many of us, just by being alive, are more spoiled than we would have been back in the day. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. As for how often we need to be quote unquote entertained, I think that is, there are definitely several points to hit with that. the first thing I would say is that our brains have not only adapted to being entertained, but also to producing more entertainment. Economically, I don't think that that's bad, that we've allowed people to have more diverse jobs. I think that the economy has really been helped by having things that range from creating games all the way down to being able to stream games. I think that while, you know, our brains have, I know many people
Mhm.
who are like, oh, you have to be able to read more and do this and use your own imagination. But then you also get games like Minecraft where you're given a blank slate and you're said, do whatever you want. I don't think that our imagination has gone away, but I do think that our brains have adjusted from going to, something that is more memory based because we don't need to memorize everything with the internet to something that is more imagination based to where we can take what we have without remembering everything, but take what we have and do something magnificent with it.
But there's actually a flip side to this kind of stimulation, right? Because if I'm constantly stimulating you, that kind of contributes to why we feel frazzled and stressed out all the time. Because I mean, like, look, I'm talking to you. I may be, on the phone. I may be on my social media, so on and so forth. I mean, the thing about books is okay. I don't know whether it's true now of the young kids, but a long time ago, reading a book meant you were doing nothing else. You were reading a book, full stop. But that's not true anymore. And in any given game, right? I mean, even if you say I'm only playing the game and nothing else, so much is happening in the game, and I'm getting so stimulated that actually I think that's a source of stress for a lot of us.
So I sit back and I'm going to take two different points on this. I'm actually going to manage both the good and the bad on this. Um, when it comes down to story, I believe that efficiency is essential in a story because it very much allows you to pack a lot more in. So, if you were to sit back and say, okay, I've got a book and I've got a video game, I'm going to pick the video game because, and this is, there's lots of different games out there. Call of Duty is a big one. And I enjoy some Call of Duty. I jump into a game, I die 50 times in 5 minutes. I'm like, great, I've got my fix for the month, slaughtered by 13-year-olds that do this a lot more frequently than I do. But I mostly play story games. So for me, jumping into a story game where you don't just read the book, but you see the characters' outfits, you see the village that they live in, and that all speaks to the world around them. You hear the leitmotifs, the music that comes through that it signifies what the theme of it is. You get to play the mechanics, which allow you to connect with the characters as well as the characters connecting with each other. I believe that story should be as efficient as possible. So more tools, better story. I say that you have to make sure that the story is well prepared. But with if you were to take the exact same writer in two different environments and have them adapt one thing to another, and they had the skills to pull it off, the more efficient the story, the better. As for the stimulation, that we get in general from, technology overall, I sit back and I say that, there's very much a balance to that. The as a narrative designer, I've studied
Before you
story.
go on to the second one, can I interrupt you and complain about the first one? Because I don't think that the more efficient the story, the better.
I'm so
just
glad
my
that you
moment
interrupt,
is-
Serene, because I
Yes!
feel the exact same way.
Well, they're gonna be like equally big, so we can like have more power interrupting you. I don't agree with this efficiency, right? Like, I mean, write it in the comments to me, people, if you're hearing this. Who of you wants a very efficient story? Like,
Okay, so yeah.
Look.
So I wanna take a moment, Serene, but do you want to go first?
No. Okay, let me just say it in two sentences. I grew up reading Chinese novels that were like, I don't know, 30 books to tell a story. That is not efficiency. But I can tell you this, that these are some of the most beloved novels ever. And they have been read, like made into movies, made into TV serials, over and over and over again. Like, the guy was knighted for writing these books. Okay, so go ahead, Tiffany. Your turn. I shall remove.
Okay, so a couple of different things. Okay, I hear what you're saying about play optimized for lifelong learning, something. Then I hear that you have three main aspects that you look at: learning, entertainment, and narrative. So the first thing that rubs me interestingly, is entertainment. Because is it entertainment? Is it more edutainment? Is that really what we're talking about here? The second thing is, I'm just going to ramble for a minute. Yeah, we have platforms like Minecraft. Is Roblox the same? And what about things like, and I know that this is different, but it's kind of the same. What about like Animal Crossing? So I'm not familiar with Minecraft and I'm not familiar with Roblox, but I am familiar with Animal Crossing. And to me, the story isn't really like, it's not really an expedient and efficient story. It's sort of how the day runs every day. You till the land, you buy some crap, you sell it, just all the normal things. Once a week you sell some turnips. Like, it's all very exciting but it's not very efficient. It's just how things work. And so I'm interested in learning more about Life is Strange, because maybe it's an RPG. That's what I'm hearing. Rewinding time to engage in better conversations. Like, that's really interesting to me. And then finally, play being stripped from education. Like, is play being stripped from education, or is education being stripped from play? That's where I stopped there for a while. And then narrative, sure, that's important. I feel like this is a lot of what we talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, does narrative play into like a sense of agency? And then entertainment, we've already talked about. Edutainment, I'm not really sure. So from a non-gamer perspective, I don't play any of the hardcore games. I don't go bam, bam, shoot 'em up, play Call of Duty, whatever all that is, yell to all the people in a massively open multiplayer online game, which is basically where like all of my friends can be and we're all doing this thing live. I don't play any of those because it's all just too complex. But I have been known to like pick up a phone, my mobile phone, and play Plants versus Zombies, for instance, a PopCap 3A game. And so, but I still don't consider myself a gamer. So I want to talk about a couple of different things. How we identify ourselves. Are we really talking about gaming as the enemy? And does the story need to be efficient at all times? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of goodness in the space in between the action parts.
Yes. So let me tackle these one at a time. First of all, let's go back to what you said about play. Play is the synergy between the three factors: entertainment, narrative, and learning. Mm-hmm. Now, so it is the fact that education has been pulled out of play. And so you are, by doing that, you're losing narrative and you're losing entertainment, but you're not just losing those two, you're also losing the synergy between. And to give just a synopsis, synergy is when the end product is greater than the sum of its parts. So if you have 1 + 1 equals, if you have 3 apples, right? That's 1 apple, 2 apples, 3 apples. You've got 3 apples. But if you were to rank them in terms of how good they are, the synergy between an apple and a crust and cinnamon and sugar to create an apple pie is better than having those ingredients separately, as good as that could be. So you're pulling it out of the synergy. Now, when I say entertainment, the reason why I say entertainment is because that is what we said that the company name was going to be before I developed the idea of engagement. But both start with an E. So I have very much balanced the idea of just switching them out. But I wasn't sure on that. But that I say entertainment strictly because that was, what we did. But really, it does come down to engagement, right? Because you can go into and have a school where, a lesson in school where, well, let's just talk about Schoolhouse Rock. For, that's an older set of videos that uses music to engage, has a story, and is educational. That is the definition of play right there.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you that, both education is taken out of play and play has been taken out of education. I think we are kind of settled on a system of education that involves torturing our kids as much as possible. So I totally agree. It's true. It is true. I mean, one of the reasons why I go to his school and I speak to the principal is because I feel that we can do it so much better, right? I'm an educator. I've been an educator for like decades. But I kind of feel that, I agree with you this, but the thing about play is that play isn't video games, right? If you think about play is, for much of human history is going out there, picking up sticks, climbing up a tree, running around with your friends. Now, none of that has the stimulation that computer games have. The issue with computer games is nothing to do with play. I am a play advocate. I tell my son all the time, go and play. But it's that constant barrage, right? Light, sound, things happening, constant barrage of stimulation that kids are kind of grown to. I think it makes them anxious, it makes them wired, and it makes them stressed out. Because the whole idea of being a game is that the game has got to be exciting. It is adrenaline pumping, right? And look, as an adult, I know that, look, hey, it's a game. I can just press pause, go to the washroom, or get a drink and then come back and, nothing happens in between. But kids are not like that. They're stuck to it. They're sucked into it. I've seen kids not willing to go to the bathroom just because of a game. I'm like, this is inconceivable to me.
So this is actually a good segue into points that both of you guys have made. So we define game genres oftentimes by the mechanics with which they engage. So Call of Duty is what we call a first-person shooter because you have a first-person camera and you have a gun. But one of the things that many designers have pushed for is using what are called aesthetics, which is essentially the reason why you go to a game. So you go to a game for maybe the fantasy that it provides, maybe for a narrative reason, maybe for a social reason. And there's a variety of aesthetics that you can use. Tiffany, to specifically answer your question, I use Minecraft because it's one of the biggest games and the most sold games ever made. Roblox is not one that I engage with, and I'm a little too old for it now to try and deep dive into it. Mm-hmm. So I'm very unfamiliar with it. But from what I am aware, yes, Roblox is very similar. Animal Crossing is a little different from Minecraft because it's more of Minecraft, you can develop your own world, whereas Animal Crossing, you're still engaging with theirs. But this actually comes to the next point. You can absolutely get a game like Call of Duty. You're playing it online. So for the next 15 to 30 minutes, you have a large gun. You are wiping out other people of the team who then respawn so you can do it all over again in a map that you've probably played so many times that you have it memorized, and you are just go, 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 go. Mm-hmm. There is no pause function because you're playing online with other people, and the people can't pause the game and pause everyone else, especially in the middle of a kill streak or something. So there is no pausing in an online game like that.
And maybe the beauty of the no pause aspect is like synonymous with life in actuality. Maybe that's what ties the two together. Well, real life and then games. I don't
know about other games, but I mean, I've played on multiplayer shooters before, and I've been like, look, I need to go to the washroom, guys, just like take it, and I just basically pause my game for a couple of minutes, go to the washroom, and come back. Well, I mean, nobody died. Okay, no, wait. Sometimes I die. I mean, when I die in the game, it's fine. I'll join another team.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even have to die, or I don't even have to pause. I'm dead left and right. These 13-year-olds are like sweeping the floor with me. There's no way for me to win.
Yeah.
But this brings up the point that Tiffany made earlier about Animal Crossing. You go from a game like Call of Duty where you can't pause, it's high octane all the time, to a game where you can pause and it's just about farming. That's all that it's about. Is you get to go and you get to just farm and enjoy a lot of other things. And so that's another aspect of gaming, is that there is a lot of downtime that you get to relax. When you deal with narrative, one of the things you have to deal with is the pacing curve. And the pacing curve was developed by Gustav Freytag. It is called the 5X structure, and that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But you can design this narratively speaking, but you can also design it mechanically speaking. And so there's a game called Fortnite that are part of what is called the Battle Royale, where essentially if you die once, you're out of the game and the last person standing wins.
Mhm.
And
Right.
it very much relishes on the pacing curve. You know, you get into a high octane situation where you're running away from this border that's closing in on you, you're shooting at other people, but then there's time to relax where the border's not closing and you have to scavenge for new equipment, new guns, that type of stuff. And that, you know, that pacing curve is very much as well how life works. And so you get games that are high octane. You know, you can have someone who sits back and just completely wipes out 100 people on Call of Duty and then takes their Switch on the road and spends the rest of their day farming. You know,
Okay,
it
I
is
want to
all
pause
about
you there.
managing that.
I want to pause you there, Isaac, and I want to actually pump this over to Serene because she has a child and her
Yeah.
child is gamer age, right? Because everybody is really gamer age, but a young youth, and her problem is like maybe I'm projecting. This is what I've read, right? So maybe, well, I can't get them to stop. Once they start, they never stop. It's hard to establish those boundaries. If I say they only have an hour, they complain that they took 45 minutes to get onto a game and then they really only have 15 minutes. So when does their hour start? And, I need them to do other things. Why is it that when they finally disconnect and we go out into the real world, all they ever talk about and lament about is actually going back into the world so they can be social? In this video game world. And so, Serene, I get what you're saying as far as that goes, because like, who makes dinner? It's me. sometimes.
No, it's not even dinner. It's really like, look, hello, we are actual humans sitting across the table from you, right? Like, engage with us. I don't even need you to be like grateful to me for making dinner, but at least I should expect a functioning person rather than a person who is either stuck on games or sitting there disgruntled and upset because they are forced to come out into the real world for that hour of dinner. Seriously. And so my child hasn't gone that far yet. He's only 7, but already at the age of 7, having like been forbidden from games all his life, he has already played games. So there was a free, I'm not sure if you realized, last week there was a free game on Google. And he played that until he had a splitting headache, just before he would be willing to stop, And I'm like, look, we've never given you a game, and the first game that you got, you're like, kapish, And look, he belongs to 2 gamers. He's the offspring of 2 gamers who used to spend all day gaming. Like, non-stop, no sleep, no eat, no ordering your pizza, sit there and game non-stop. And I'm like, okay, I have to kind of manage this. He's 7 years old. He's having a migraine. I mean, he's has a splitting headache. What do I do? And I have nephews who are in their teens who literally would rather be with the game people whom they've never met in their whole life than with these actual relatives.
Right.
What do I do? Yeah. So go on, Ness.
Oh, I don't have the answers for that, just because there is So the first thing that I would almost say, and I don't even know if this is true, is that I know that this is true. New is always exciting. New is always exciting. And so one of those things that you definitely do is that by holding someone back, and this is not like a personal attack or anything. I know a lot of people who ate a lot healthier than I did growing up. And so anytime they would get around anything that was sugary, they would just consume it like nonstop. Whereas for me, I definitely enjoy sweet treats, but having grown up around them a lot more than I ate healthy, I actually, like, when I get around to something that's more savory, I'll scarf it up like that, like crazy.
But let me interrupt you here. Okay, I agree with that for my son because we've not been letting him do it, but not for my nephews. Okay, they have been gaming for years. I mean, maybe even a decade, right? And they've gotten to the extent that they are so involved in the online world that they are not involved in real life anymore. No, look, I'm a hardcore gamer, so I actually, it's not like as though I'm here to advocate that nobody should play games, but I will tell you this, right? That even if we spend 20 hours sucked into the game, we still go to work on Monday, you know? I mean, I still go and have a dinner with my family, and I'm not on a game machine, you know? That doesn't happen anymore.
So I wonder if we continually talk about, or what I hear being circulated is like the fear of exponential tech, and where does power come from? And these are the musings that have really been consuming my time, because I wonder if these youth, for instance, that only have ever experienced gamification to the nth degree. I don't even know if that's the right word. It's like they don't have another paradigm to compare it to. Whereas a lot of the, I'm going to call elders, right? Whatever that is for you, because I'm not old, but like I don't play games. So I have another like reality that I can pull from, that I can gravitate towards and be like, this is the reality that I choose. But for these young people that only have existed in this fishbowl, this container, what do you do to help them?
No, but I was going to object. Before that, I was going to object to being called old. Yes, I was born before the internet was ever born, and there were no like computer games when I was born, and I still object to being called old. Okay, anyway, go on, I just wanted to object to that.
Well, I get this text message the other day, and it's got all of these like abbreviated words and all these symbols attached to it. And I go to my child and I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. And she's like, really, Dad? And I'm like, don't really me. I set up the internet for you, you know? Instagram used to be motivational posters on your wall. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have Instagram. Your tweets would still be coming from birds, and you'd still be using birds to message from one side to another. I developed the internet for you. Don't really me. I was like, I just need a little bit of help because I'm old and I don't get this stuff. And then my daughter takes my phone, she holds it in my face, and it's like, hey, this message is from Grandpa. I'm like, so, you know, I get it.
Grandpa's up with the times.
Look, I mean, you know, I forgive Grandpa because maybe Grandpa has arthritis and can't type so many letters. So I forgive him.
Yeah. Well, you know, they're advertising those like jitterbug phones and everything, and like, you know, there's people who are like on top of this stuff that I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yes. My dad does live stream better than me. Just as a shout out.
Get out of here!
No, I'm not friending him because he does it better than me. So I refuse to be his Facebook friend. I'm like, no, go away, Dad. Go away. He has like even more followers than I do. Like, go away. Yeah.
Hide that away.
No, but I think a lot of it, right? Thinking about it is this, where is reality? Because I struggle with it as a parent, right? Like, let me put it this way, okay? When I look at my son, I'm thinking to myself, right? I grew up in a world that no longer exists. And am I preparing him for a world that doesn't exist anymore? Because if I look forward, he's 7, right? When he's 27 in 20 years' time, what will the world be like? It will be way more virtual than right now. We probably have like VR and AR, and people are like all stuck at home with a VR screen working, right? And what am I preparing him for? Am I really preparing him for real life? Will that be the real life in the future? And if he's unable to kind of cope with real life, and I'll be frank, okay, I can't, right? And when I make friends online, I can't kind of think of them as the same friends as the friends I have in real life, which has always been my kind of struggle because I'm not a digital native. But if I look at him and I go, if I don't prep him to actually value the friends he make online more than the friends in real life, he may never survive in the future. That's my other struggle as a parent, you know?
Well, you know, it's funny because I consistently game and I'm the exact same way. I'm very tech savvy. I know exactly what I'm doing. but I still do not like engage with people online the same way that I'll engage with people in real life.
Okay,
Not
this
saying
is
I
my
do a good
turn to
job
say this,
engaging
but
with people
Isaac,
in real
you're
life
old,
either.
you know? This is my turn to say it,
Yeah.
but Isaac, you're old. You're not young enough to value the
No,
virtual
I'm
friend more
not.
than the physical
I
friends.
was
Come
born
on.
in those like awkward teen years of the internet. I don't like online shopping because I would rather go in and touch and grab an actual product. And I'm here in defense of technology and games, and I'd still rather go in and touch a product than order it online and not be able to like have that kinesthetic connection.
But I look at the kids these days, right? Like, I mean, if I look at my nephews and the kids, they do, to them, they really are like the friends that look. Okay, he may have friends in real life, but they all prefer to meet online rather
Yeah,
than say go to Max and have a meal, right? Okay, now we
yeah,
can't in Singapore, but even
yeah,
when we could, he would not want to do it, right? He would rather meet online with all of his
yeah,
friends. And when I'm like, why do you do that? The answer is very simple, which is, well, if I meet, I can only meet a few of them. But when I go online, I can meet all of them,
all
even
of
the
them.
ones that are no
Yeah,
longer in Singapore. And I'm
yeah,
like, okay, maybe the kids have got a point, right? But to
yeah,
him, that is even more valuable than meeting offline. And
yeah.
I think, I mean, I don't know if you predate the internet, but you certainly don't look young enough to be in that generation.
Well,
Maybe
again,
it's just the beard. It's just the beard. That's what it is. Shave it off
well,
and you look 10 years younger.
oh, I have a baby face without the beard, but the beard doesn't make me look older. It just doesn't give me because I've put on enough weight to where I don't have the baby face anymore. And so until I get back to that point, I need the beard to hide away the extra weight that I bring on my face.
Damn,
For sure.
now I suddenly wish I could grow a beard to
Reality.
hide my different things. Oh, John, why are women so disadvantaged in this world? Oh,
Okay,
Well, you
so
know
okay, but
what?
anyway, go
You
on.
guys
Yeah.
say that for the beard, but like I carry around like a ton of technology, and like from time to time, I'm like, I really wish it was socially acceptable for me to carry a purse because all my kids are giving me stuff too, and I'm like, I wish I could carry a purse. So no, I get that.
okay, so
No,
I want
okay,
to
so let's get back to it
I
about
want to get
reality. Go on.
so I want to get back to something that you said, Serene. Like, am I preparing my kids for the future? Right? What is 20 years going to be? And my husband and I watched a movie a little bit ago, and it was called Captain Fantastic. And it's about a father who's devoted to raising his 6 kids with a rigorous physical and intellectual education, who's forced to leave the woods, his version of paradise, and enter the world, which challenges his idea of what it means to be a parent. And so this movie is about his journey through a new adventure with his children, overcoming a devastating blow to their family. And I bring this up because even though Captain Fantastic is trying to do the best that he feels for his children don't have social skills. They don't have the ability to cope with other people. Yeah, in so many ways, they're so much stronger. But the social aspect, he stripped it because they don't actually know how to have real communication with like the masses, if you will. And so even though it was what he felt was best, it actually hurt the children in the long term that they had to recover from later in life. And so it ends up being like a wonderful story. Yay. And so separately, I want to talk about something that I delved in myself, only about maybe 12 episodes, like 12 1 to 2 hour podcasts. But if podcasts are your thing, maybe if you're dealing with a gamer in your life who is giving you some level of difficulty, maybe in order to bridge the gap, what we need is a way of healthy communicating between the two, and maybe elevating a base understanding of the subject matter itself. And so I recommend The Psychology of Video Games. And it's a great podcast by some super smart guy, but it's one of the few gaming podcasts that like I continually just get my mind blown over and over. So if you've not yet had a chance to delve into that, maybe I'd love to know what you think, Isaac.
Yeah, so that's not a podcast that I've listened to, but I will say this in order to really answer your question: Are you raising your kids, and are you adequately preparing your kids for what happens next? And the answer is no, you are not. And I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying this to me, to everyone, because consistently we have, technology specifically grows at an exponential rate, but so does innovation. And it's one of those things to where we can raise our kids for, we're constantly raising our kids. I think I talked with Tiffany about this a while ago that, you get this image of what school in the 90s looked like, but really that was school in the 80s, because people who were in school in the 80s and then got out of it and started making movies put that image on the 90s. We are constantly behind, because by the time we are managed to catch up with the Snapchat and the TikTok and the VR and all this stuff, they've got something new. And it's like, what on earth?
I object. My kid goes to school now, and his school hasn't changed much from when I went to school, right? It's still 31 desk, I'm over with one teacher lording it over them. You all shut up. Don't talk to each other. Listen to what I have to say. I'm going to drone on for an hour, and then another teacher is swapped in. If anything, it's even worse. The teacher stops talking, and now they show them videos on an LCD screen. I'm like, that's not even human interaction. I can show him that at home. I can show YouTube too.
Well, and education is a topic of conversation that I'm very passionate about, and I could very much get into. But that actually leads me into my second point. I have dived into narrative to the point of getting into psychology. And one of the things that I have learned is that people have base levels of intelligence and base instincts that have never and will never change. What's changed is how we engage with those things. And a lot of people are very concerned about that because how we've engaged with those has changed at such a rapid rate. Other people are concerned about it because they're concerned with how things have changed, that there is too much engagement. And again, as someone who enjoys the engagement, as someone who supports the engagement and how things have changed for a positive effect in many, many ways, I still agree that there are times that we need to step back and that we have engaged with technologies that we are still, to a certain extent, unaware of the side effects. But at the end of the day, one of the things that, and this is true of more true of education than anything else, we have the ability to make things more efficient, but we don't, because we're linked on to an old system. And this goes back to a question that I didn't answer earlier about should stories be more efficient? And, there are different types of stories in gaming. So, for example, you don't really get a story inside of a match of Call of Duty, but the narrative there is, oh my gosh, I did this really cool thing, and this is now something that I can go and tell my friends at school around the lunch table, which is very different from the efficiencies of a story that has characters that needs to be relatable, which is very different than a story that of Animal Crossing, which is you essentially relaxing on the pacing curve after having a difficult day, after decompressing after a difficult day. So there are a variety of different stories that are there. And then where they fall in your life as you are, more or less paced through life, very much does depend. However, the beauty of the efficiency is the fact, because we homeschool and we get our stuff done in half the time that anyone else would be able to get stuff done. And yeah, it is more efficient. It is a little bit more intense, but at the same time, they can then decompress in other ways. Without school having to pace out their lives for them, they're able to do that themselves, which gives them a higher sense of agency.
I guess for me is I agree that there's a huge variety of games, and there's probably I guess a computer game to suit whatever your personality type or need is, right? I'm married to a man who plays very lengthy and very slow strategy games. And I'm the RPG sort, and we get together and do shootouts. But the thing is that for me, the real concern is really this almost falsification of reality, right? No matter what form or type of game, there is in some way almost misrepresentation of reality, whether it be more colorful, engaging in reality, or just simply more flat and 2D. And I am really getting to be quite concerned when I see not my own son, but the teenagers around me, that there is a disconnect from real life almost. And that is almost causing me to ask myself, right, like, which is real to them? Is the world online more real? And again, relating to what I told you earlier, should we now then prepare them for this kind of reality of the future? But it scares me, right? It scares me because I'm a huge science fiction fan, and I'm sure all of you have watched The Matrix. You know, I
Yeah.
really see a whole future of us just literally plugged in and
That
entertained for that information, for that fact,
So I can take this and break this up. So first of all, when you say something being more real or less real, I think that that's something that a lot of people tend to grab onto when that's not necessarily the case. Because the case is that reality is not like, are video games more real or is real life more real? It's all a part of it. It's all a part of what we do. And I think that that's not just a misnomer for adults. I think that's a misnomer for kids. That's why kids will sit in this game, because they're like, oh, this is my reality. This is what I want. Whereas that's very much something that we need to put aside, because it's a balance of everything that makes up our reality, not just the digital side, not just the non-digital side, but everything that you're doing together. Because in the end, if you're working in an office and then you're playing a game, or maybe you're working in an office in VR, as we bridge the gap between the digital world and the non-digital world, and as we reap all those benefits, it's one of those things that we're able to see that reality is a combination of things. But we also get that in all of fiction, right? So for me, one of the things that I will tell you is that fiction is reality wrapped up in a package that is easy to engage with. So when you're creating a story of someone who goes and fights a dragon and saves a princess, none of us really know what that's like. I assume that we're not off fighting dragons, but everyone knows what it's like to be brave and to go after what they want, and to have the courage to face the fear that they will come across as they're going to do that. So
No, but
everything has that.
the difference now is not so much that actually I have this objection to movies as well, right? It's not that you are letting me be like, think of the dragon, right? Because I assure you, right, that if you say dragon and I say dragon, it's a different dragon, right? But it's almost as if instead of telling you, the story about going to slay a dragon, now I'm actually showing you the dragon. I'm not only showing you the dragon, I'm restricting the ways that you can kill a dragon, because there are only so many buttons, on the PS4, and there's only so many moves that you can make, right? So from this whole, let me tell you a story about, St. George killing a dragon, and everybody has like their own imagination and their own free play. Now I'm restricting your world, and your world is just like that. Right? This is the dragon. This is the way that you kill him. This is what you need to do. And you need to collect these 5 items before you can arrive at the dragon's cave.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about it, like, you're creating an entire reality that is different from reality. It's not part of reality, really. Do you understand the difference?
So can I want to interject before you go up.
Sure.
So here's the way I see it. The way I see it is we're talking about a fractured being, right? We're talking about, is online making reality more real or less real? And Isaac is saying it's all really a part of just one thing. It's like a continuation, right? It's the spectrum. And so I purchased a book recently, and it was called Augmented Reality by Kathy Hackle and John Buzzard. And what they propose is that it's this VR, AR, XR, it's essentially a tool. It's a tool. We all are augmented with tech in our lives. Not everybody, I don't have a Roomba, but like everybody has a Roomba. My parents have a Roomba. Anybody with, I don't know, $700 for a good one. Then we talk about this new being always exciting. Okay. And then Isaac, you talked earlier about game mechanics and aesthetics and fantasy narrative and what you want to accomplish in a life. So you talked about Fortnite being a battle royale, Animal Crossing being social farming, and fantasy, like this whole idea of like meditating and like, going in your own little space of white box and just like creating this world, this thing. I see a little bit of, maybe I need to talk, Isaac. But
Oh
it's
no,
this
sorry.
fantasy.
It's just really early for me, so I'm yawning a little bit. So,
Okay,
so
all
sorry.
right. But
So those of
fantasy,
you who
that's
don't
what
know,
we're trying to
this
create, though, right? Fantasy. So is it that we're avoiding reality, or that we're pursuing some new adventure, right? This new fantasy, or is it something else? Or are we just trying to add a level of stimulation in our environment because what the world we see is bleak? I don't know. I'm projecting. I don't know.
Well, okay,
But
I'm a
is it-
gamer, and I will say this: I am escaping from reality with games. I am, right. It's a form of escapism for me. It's entertainment. Some people go to the movies. Some people, I don't know what else they do. Read a book, maybe. But for me, it's gaming. Right? It's to game. And
It's
what happens when I don't come back? What happens when I escape, and I escape for good?
so
and pee in bottles and like weird stuff. Like,
Oh, did you know? Oh.
really, Isaac.
it's funny because, and you see this everywhere. You see this in politics. You see this in the digital world. You see this everywhere, where essentially everyone likes to bulk up on one side or another of this seesaw as things kind of come and go. Narratively speaking, there are essentially two schools of thought that have arisen in terms of narrative, and they are Eastern and Western. The Western side is, to put it, in the most stereotypical term possible, is very much like a Michael Bay movie. There's lots of engagement, there's lots of explosions, there's lots of grab people's attention because they don't have a good attention span. You have to maintain, the plot straight through. Whereas you get the Eastern story structure that stemmed from Journey to the West, which is, hey, we've got this journey, and along the way there's other people, so we're going to get distracted. We're going to take what we're taking to the end. We're going to distribute along here. And so the thing is that a lot of people want to jump to one side or another. Do you take the plot of the Western world or the theme of the Eastern world? And the end goal ends up being balance. So a lot of people are very scared that the way that we are accelerating through technology will leave us in a matrix-like state. I mean, that's why, the matrix was invented, or, was written, because people have that. But in reality, we actually see people assume we were going to be plugged into VR, and yet Pokemon Go and AR came around, where now all of a sudden people are more outside than they were, than they have been in the last several decades. Mm-hmm. So I find that people will often balance themselves out over time. I don't think we're going to end up in some like Matrix level thing, because historically we've seen, whether it's politically speaking, whether it's, technology speaking, innovation speaking, we have consistently balanced ourselves out. We've never really pulled to one side or another for too long.
Can I ask you, who plays Pokemon Go where you come from?
So I played it for a little bit, but it really annoyed me because I was like, this is not a Pokemon game. I'm old. I know what it used to be like. This is not what it's like.
Look, so the reason why I'm asking you this is because here in Singapore, most of the Pokemon players I see, at least the ones that I see out there, are old. They're adults, They are not the kids going out there to play Pokemon game. I mean, initially, yes, there was a whole bunch of kids, but I think, as with all things, I mean, kids come and go, and now, like a year or 2 years down the road, it's all these really kind of like people like myself, right, who are playing it, and I get a feeling that kids prefer. I mean, they prefer something that is more constructed, less, Actually, I even think that they don't like VR because you have to move in VR.
No.
They're all like stuck there with the control. That's it.
So let me. VR.
Okay.
VR. I play it.
Yeah.
I'm guilty.
Okay.
I'm guilty. Non-gamer guilty. I play Beat Saber. And I'll tell you a real story. So I started playing Beat Saber in this March. And by May, I kid you not, I lost 50 pounds. And it was just because I was, having fun with spatial reality and, moving your arms, and you realize that everything is so fatigued because you sit all day. And so there's a lot of really positive benefits, to it. So I play VR, but I play VR because I'm able to move. So it's really funny. Go.
Well, you mentioned that, you're talking about how older people are playing Pokemon Go. I've seen what happens if there is someone who's older who gets, who's retired, they're no longer working, they start falling out of old habits, their spouse dies, and they end up sitting in a chair, and then they get out once or twice a day to use the bathroom, and then they don't, and then they slowly meld into the chair.
Not that old. Not that old.
Yeah, well, you know what?
My dad hasn't picked up, Pokemon Go yet. He's live streaming and on Zoom, so like you and I.
Well, I've seen people play Pokemon Go who are that old, and it gives them something to do, because this ends up going back to what we were talking about earlier, right? How do games suck us in? And psychologically speaking, there is what's called an external motivator, which is like, hey, this isn't fun, but you get a big reward at the end of it, which could be contributed to something like working out or going to school, except for the fact that it takes so long to see those results that, it's not a very good external motivator. And then you have the internal motivators, which says, hey, this is something that's fun. So working out is not fun, but playing, some people think it's fun. But playing Pokemon Go is a workout that, okay, Tiffany's crazy. But Tiffany has used the internal motivator of VR to essentially work out. That was an internal motivator. She took working out, which is something that, for the regular people in the crowd are don't enjoy the working out, and got into it within a virtual environment, and essentially were able to work out. And there's a workout game on the last several Nintendo systems that have been really great. I actually know someone, you talk about people different ages engaging with AR or VR. I know someone who runs a VR studio, and there's a lot of kids in there. I think there's definitely some challenges getting to the hardware side of it. But as we develop MMOs, as we develop the same games that we're developing now in VR, they will enjoy it. I mean, I remember, you played Doom, right, Serene? Okay.
Yes.
So we've gone from playing Doom, where you had to move left and right, and it didn't matter if they were really high up on a crevice, you could shoot them here and they would die here. Then we developed Call of Duty, where, you have to aim up, down, left, and right. And now we've got Fortnite. And I don't play Fortnite, and very specifically because I started playing Fortnite and I had my sniper, my sniper rifle aimed at someone. It was a perfect shot. I would have taken them out. And then all of a sudden, they are 50 stories above my head. And I'm like, nope, I'm done. I can't do that. So, all the kids who play now have to adjust to things the way that we're adjusting to things. And so over time, most of the games will be VR, because that is a tool that makes the game, a little bit more efficient. We are going to have the strongest gamer population that we have ever had as they go to VR, and they will outclass anyone. They will outclass anyone in terms of strength, because of, as we develop more and more VR. And that really does come down to, I talked earlier about the efficiency of story, but you're also able to develop the efficiency of mechanics, where you're able to work out and play games at the same time. And, we could get into each of the individual topics, around, whether video games are or not evil based on, violence and based on the gambling and everything. But at the end of the day, it really does come down to the fact that gamification is really useful. We talk about how are you engaging in the virtual world over the real world. And people are starting to pick up on that, and people are starting to make the real world, they're starting to add internal and external motivators to the real world. And while at the same time, while games are doing the same thing, they're adding Pokemon Go to walking and everything else like that. So, I think that there is definitely something to be said by encouraging people to be engaged, but games engage people by using real world psychology. They sit back and say, all of your friends are here. I mean, if you were to go outside and play with all your friends and then, and put together sticks and everything like that, versus coming inside and playing with all your friends and putting together sticks and dirt, but in a virtual environment where, and, I'm definitely pro that, because I'm like, oh, I don't have to give you guys a bath afterwards. Yay. Or at least as in-depth as the bath.
No, but I think in a lot of places that people are worried about safety and so on. So I mean, fair enough. I can understand that. I mean, I prefer my kids to go out, but then I live in one of the safest countries in the world. So,
well,
I can't.
we live in a very safe place as well. And, we very much are, during the summer months, I'm like, I take them out to the pool, and they're at the pool more often than not. During the winter months, there's definitely a lot of screens, but during the summer months, they're definitely outside a little bit more. And it really does come down to the fact of, how engaging is the outside. And it's not that, friends are engaging, activities are engaging, all of this stuff is still there. The question is, how are we putting this out there? And video games have done a good job of that. So the question is if you want your kids to engage in real life, how can we one up those?
I actually don't think that it is possible to one up it. I honestly tell you, because I don't think that real life will ever be that engaging. But I think we're coming to the top of the hour. So I think it's kind of, let's look back and look at all the different threads that we have looked at, right? So we've looked at virtual reality versus current reality, and like, what is more real, right? What is going to be the reality going forward? What is more real to people, and whether there's even any problem with virtual reality being more real. Because I think, like what you said, right? I mean, games are evolving. We're having more VR, we're having more AR, where people are engaging with reality, and perhaps it's all one reality, right? Whether I'm on the game, whether I'm here, it's all kind of one reality for me. And we've also looked at, about addictions, and also about the different types of games, right? Because even Tiffany has admitted to playing some games. Oh, VR even. So the sheer variety, shoot 'em up, RPG, multiplayer online, to stuff like, I don't know, farming games, Pokemon Go, Minecraft, all of that. What is the sheer variety of games, and is it fair to kind of paint them all the same brush, right? Because I'm sure there are farming games where no violence ever happens, except perhaps you slaughter a cow after you have farmed it. I don't know whether that counts as violence, but so what are the different things that we are not getting into with games? And also, I think Isaac was mentioning about how the gamification, not just online games, but the whole gamification of life is simply because it works. A, it works. B, is much more engaging, right? And I think these are some of the different threads that we've looked at. I don't know if I missed anything. If I missed anything, yes, okay, Tiffany, go.
What we talked about for a long period was about courage. And it doesn't matter what it is, courage to play video games, courage to find efficiencies, what's intense, what's a acceptable level of intensity, perhaps finding the efficiency of both story and mechanics, and most importantly, how do we engage with the outside, whatever the outside is for us.
And anything you want to add to that, Isaac?
Well, actually, this is one of the things I don't think that I was able to, that I got into before. And this is not just games. This is a lot of fiction overall. We talked about the dragon, the story of the dragon and everything, and how stories are essentially almost a microdot of real life. That's one of the things that we're able to engage with these things, and fiction is able to teach us life lessons by wrapping reality into fiction. And this is, the topic of the psychology of story and video games is a whole other conversation for sure. But, agency is a big thing. I think that's what Tiffany was talking about. Agency is a huge thing within games because you're able to die and restart. You don't have to necessarily feel that fear. And it is a microcosm of practice of really being able to get your own, level of agency. And again, the psychology of it is a multi-hour conversation in and of itself. But you said this yourself. People are recognizing what games are bringing to the table. And again, as a big gamer, not all games are perfect. Not all games do good things. Some games do some good things, some bad things. But people are starting to recognize what games are bringing to the table, and it's becoming a tool like everything else for us to operate. Very specifically. I don't think that we have brought this up one time, which is very impressive. But it is teaching us a great way to operate within a COVID world.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'm very impressed that we have gone through and not brought that up one time.
No, I'm sick and tired of talking about it, right? So let's
no, absolutely. I agree with you. But still,
So not
talking
even
about
the
a
point,
digital
right?
environment without bringing that up is I'm kind of impressed.
All right. Okay, so I mean, that's all for us today. I think I really appreciate Tiffany, Isaac, both of you being here. I really had fun today. And for those of you who are still with us, next week we are going on to Clubhouse. Yes, we are getting younger by the minute as we talk about Clubhouse, and we're going on to Clubhouse. So we're going to bring this constructive argument onto Clubhouse. If you're listening to us, you want to fight with us, you want to argue with us, Clubhouse is the place to talk about it. We're going to bring our constructive arguments up onto Clubhouse. And so next week, Friday evening for if you're in the US, and Saturday morning if you're here in Asia and Singapore, we are going to go. Okay, so thank you so much. It's been a wonderful evening talking to you, both of you. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Sounds good.